Hello again, everyone, and welcome to part two of our hybrid session for today. In the first video I created for all of you, I went over the Argumentative Strategies graphic organizer. And just to remind you, that graphic organizer is available for you under the Argumentative Essays content folder on Blackboard. And in the video, I also covered the Rebuttal Arguments Google Slides presentation. I posted that presentation as well as the video under the 220 class materials content folder on Blackboard. That way you can access them at all times, you can go back to them as many times as you need, and hopefully those materials will answer some of the questions you might have. For this video, I'm going to focus briefly on the two readings you are responsible for today. But more importantly, I'm going to discuss the outline of the assignment that you'll be required to complete for this session. Okay, so this document right here is available for you under the 220 class materials content folder. That way, if you want to access it for yourselves and make a checklist or whatever, you'll have access to it. What you're going to do first is focus on completing a certain portion of the Argumentative Strategies graphic organizer. And today you're going to focus solely on the rebuttal arguments portion. Okay? So, when you pull up this document, what you want to do is this. Under the notes on the strategy section, what you're going to do is fill in notes that you take based on the first video that I posted about rebuttal arguments. And second, you're going to fill in the notes on the readings column. So what you're going to do is, based on your reading of Jones and Stewart, you're going to give me a brief overview of what your notes were on those two readings, and you'll fill in this column accordingly, okay? So once you fill in both of these columns to the best of your ability, what you're going to do is one of two things. You can either upload the document to your shared drive folder, especially if you are typing it. That would be the easiest way for me to access it. Or if you like handwriting things, you are welcome to email me pictures of those completed sections by 11:59 p.m. tonight. So whether you're uploading it to Drive or you are taking pictures of your hard copy, I will expect to see them by 11:59 tonight. Okay? So your completion of this first portion of the graphic organizer will account for 10 of the points of this hybrid assignment. Okay, so you'll get 5 points essentially for each section under rebuttal arguments. Okay, so the second and probably a little bit more involved part of this assignment is trying to recreate the conversation that we would have in class about the readings. So what I've done here is I have split you all up into 4 groups, and unlike the peer workshop session that we just completed on Monday, I tried to put you with the people that you normally sit with in class. That way you feel a little bit more comfortable engaging with each other, okay? So I have your groups listed here. You either have 4 or 5 people, okay? And you'll notice that there are different discussion boards for each group on Blackboard. So if you go over here to Content and you go into Discussion Board, you'll see that they are clearly labeled Group 1, 2, 3, and 4. So very important that you understand what your group number is. That way there's no confusion about where I need to find your contributions for tonight, okay? So you have your group. If you need to contact each other, feel free. Otherwise, you can complete this part of the class pretty asynchronously, meaning that, for instance, Bill can do his part without notifying Nick, Mike, Joe, or Dylan that he's doing it, because everyone will be able to see it in the discussion board as soon as Bill posts it, okay? So your first responsibility, formatting thing, sorry, this is Mr. Thierry being OCD. All right, your first task is each person in the group is responsible for posting a well-written post that addresses the following prompts for each of the readings. So essentially, I should see 2 well-written paragraphs, one that addresses all of these ideas about Jones, and a second paragraph that addresses these 3 prompts related to Stewart, okay? I think 2 paragraphs minimum is fairly doable. It should help me understand how you're addressing each of those prompts, okay? So for Jones, he's the shorter of the two articles. You want to answer what prompts him to write his piece. So essentially, what has happened in the world that he's responding to that sort of like puts a bee in his bonnet, so to speak, that makes him want to write his piece. Second, what are his main arguments against considering video games art? And finally, you want to create a 2 to 3 sentence objective summary of his piece overall. So once you've outlined his main arguments, try to synthesize all of them into a cohesive 2 or 3 sentence summary. Some of you might want to put that as a separate paragraph. That way your first paragraph answers the first 2 prompts, and then you have your summary separately before moving on to Stuart. But if you want to put it all in one, that's perfectly fine. As far as Stuart is concerned, his was the second of the 2 articles. It was a little bit longer. You want to figure out what are his oppositions to Jones's argument. So obviously I've given you these readings because they focus on rebuttal arguments, so to speak. So you want to figure out, what does Stuart not agree with in Jones's argument, okay? Once you do that, you also want to figure out what evidence is Stuart using to support his refutation of Jones's argument. So who are the people that he's quoting? What are the texts or the articles that he's quoting? And what are the ideas he's using to support his refutation? By the end of the article, your third question is, what is Stuart's main argument? And hint, it's not just that video games should be considered art. So I want you to pay very close attention to how he shifts his thinking by the very end. Once you figure that out, do you agree or disagree? Does he have a valid point? And why? So use your close reading or your interpretation of the article to answer that last prompt. Okay. One thing I want to keep you all aware of is that your initial response should include at least one piece of well-blended and properly cited evidence from each article. So what I mean by well-blended is you introduce the quote. You would say something like, Jones believes, or according to Jones. And then you would also create an in-text citation, which in APA would be the author's last name, comma, the year it was published. And in this case, since we don't have page numbers, you want to put a comma, and then you'll do paragraph number, okay? So I'll see at least one piece of evidence from Jones and at least one piece of evidence from Stuart, okay? So this section is going to count for 15 of the points of this assignment, 5 for your Jones section, 5 for your Stuart section, and then 5 points for your use of evidence. And I will look for those posts on Blackboard by 5 p.m. tomorrow, okay? Once you all post that initial response, your final task is to respond to at least one other person's response from your group, okay? What you want to do is respond in at least 3 sentences, because I saw in our first discussion board last week that many of you were not taking the time to really valuably respond to other people. So this is not something that you should do haphazardly. You really want to show me evidence that you are trying to have a discussion with other members of your group, okay? So your response is going to be the final 5 points of this assignment, and your responses will be due by 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, okay? So your initial post will be due by 5 p.m. tomorrow, and your response to one of your other group members will be due by 11:59 tomorrow, okay? So when all is said and done, this assignment is going to be 5, 20, 30 points in total, okay? So again, your posts are going to be here labeled by group, and then I will also be looking for you to upload this finished part of the graphic organizer right here, this first column, by 11:59 tonight, okay? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but please use this outline to the best of your ability to field all of those questions before you reach out to me, all right? Otherwise, I look forward to reading what you have to say about Jones and about Stuart. And hopefully, weather permitting, we'll see each other next week. Oh, and one final thing before we go, I forgot to mention. I posted the course schedule for the next few weeks under the argumentative strategies or argumentative essays content folder. So what I want to remind you of is you should be reading this article, How Cultural Appropriation Hurts Us All, by Gina Florio, for Monday. So you're going to print, read, and annotate. And just as a final reminder, you need to upload your revised draft of your literature review to Blackboard by 5 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, so I will create an assignment link for that on Blackboard in the coming days. And I will also update the homework assignment here. That way it also listed at the bottom. All right. Again, any questions, let me know. Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. And I'll talk to all of you soon.